You wrote a great column on re-ranking the class of 2018, and I was surprised to see that Texas didn't really fall that far in spite of their overall results and getting and a coach got fired in those 4 years.
Yeah, it's true. This is a re-rank that we do every year around signing day, and we updated it this week with the results from the NFL draft, which didn't really change the rankings a lot much. Georgia still had the best class in 2018 by far, and just a ton of draft picks, obviously 14 in that class. But yeah, Texas is one of those where kind of like they got a lot of starters out of their 2018 class, a lot of guys that are still there and will start again this year. But would you say they've got like first round picks in that class? No, they don't. And that was a class that was a top 5 class for Tom Herman, and certainly raised expectations there. And there's some good players like DeMarvion Overshown who are still there who have a chance to help their stock. And Joseph Osai obviously had a really good year in 2020. But Texas is one of those kind of mixed bags a little bit where the guys either started or left basically, and the ones who started, pretty good players, not a ton of all conference players in that class.
And Max, looks like the playoff teams. I mean, you look at the re-rankings; it's basically the college football playoff, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not intentional, but that's kind of how it works out, right? I mean, I think that's still – it's funny because we talk so much when I talk to you guys about transfer portal and who's going where and all this stuff, but I think at the end of the day, it's still pretty important to have a veteran team and have a team full of guys that you've developed for a couple of years. And in this case with the rankings, the one that really stood out was Cincinnati, just a terrific class by Luke Fickell and his staff. It goes to show you just what they can do in terms of development. Obviously Clemson did well because, this is the class that had Trevor Lawrence in it. And, he took them all the way very early on in his career. But, this is, Michigan is one that a lot of people probably would have been disappointed by Michigan's class on signing day in terms of where it ranked. But, they signed Aiden Hutchinson and a lot of great players that built a playoff team. So, that's kind of where, we're trying to judge how did you retain them, how did you develop them, how many of them really started and made a big impact for you, and those are some of the schools that did really well.
You had Baylor 14th on the re-rank, and they were 29th in 2018 initially. So developing players, that's what Matt Rule and Dave Aranda have done over the last couple of years. Was there anybody who, when you started doing the math, like just really jumped out at you?
Well, it's funny because Baylor is one of those classes that did move up this week because Tyquan Thornton got drafted higher than I probably expected back in February. And that just goes to show you, I mean, you knew obviously those guys were going to light it up at the combine, but, it makes a ton of sense, obviously, that class grades out really well just in terms of, their ability to, play for 2 Big 12 championships. And certainly we saw Matt Rule and those guys took the right approach in terms of the kind of athletes they were looking for. And Dave Aranda did a great job of keeping those guys too, because a lot of times when these classes go through, coaching change in the middle of their careers, that's usually when you see at a lot of these schools, these guys go bail and go play somewhere else. And that's a credit to Baylor that they were able to hold on to those guys and keep winning with that class.
So Max,